Hello and welcome to Cutter Builds. We're back with another episode of Satisfactory, and last time we laid down the foundations for a new factory. Today we are going to catch up on a little bit of off-camera work that I've done to get this factory started, and then we're going to jump into getting our steel production up and running, and hopefully setting up all of the components necessary to get the next tier of our space elevator unlocked. So let's jump into it. Ouch. So if we take a look at this real quick, all I've done really is move the two factories we had in our base. The one up by the copper we had that was building rotors is moved down here, and the assemblers we had building reinforced iron plates has been moved down here. We do have two of each running now, and these are the components necessary to build the first of our space elevator components. We need rotors. And then if we look up here, we need these reinforced iron plates. We also use these reinforced iron plates to create our Mark II belts that we're using for parts of our factory already. And so it made sense to double up and get another assembler going here. We're taking a bit of a lazy man's approach to automation at the moment though. And all we've done is put two storage containers in here behind our factory to run the components necessary for our reinforced iron plates. We are using the stitched iron plate recipe here, the alternate recipe, which allows us to create reinforced iron plates from copper wire and iron plates as opposed to needing lots of screws, which would have been a little bit more of a complicated setup for us. This is nice and compact, and we've got all of these materials being made at our base at the moment anyway. So anytime I run back up here, I just bring a little bit of components with me, drop them in there, and we've got all of these components being made continuously. The interesting thing with rotors is that all of the rotors actually can be made from iron rods. And so all we've done is the same thing. We've taken the lazy man's approach to automation and put a storage container in here where I can drop iron rods in and feed the entire rotor setup for the time being. One of the things I'd like to do today at some point, if we have time, is move our core iron processing over here to the main factory now. You can see I started to kind of spec out some constructors here and what it would look like to create the iron rods here at the big factory that we're starting to build. And so the goal will be to continue to consolidate our production into this factory over time. However, for now, we're going to rely on the production that we've already built back at the main base. So with that out of the way, let's run down here and check out the other thing that we've been working on. So we built this truck last time to go exploring, and I realized we have the truck station unlocked. Now, I haven't actually done anything with this. In fact, I didn't really use these a lot the last time I played Satisfactory. And so I thought, well, you know, rather than moving all of our material from the base over here to this factory and having belts everywhere, let's actually maybe play around with the truck station for the time being. At some point, I'd also like to get trains and other things like that running. And so we might play around with that here at some point. But for today's video, we've got a lot of things that we want to accomplish, so we may come back and tackle that in a future video. But let's run back over here to the base and take a look at one other small change that I've made here, getting everything set up for what we want to accomplish. You can see I've laid out some platforms here and another truck station where we'll be able to load resources to bring back to the other base at some point. Again, we'll figure out how that all works here in another episode. But if we come up here and check out our space elevator for a second, you can see that we've added a couple of additional assemblers and storage containers up here. And this is to match up with the 3 inputs that we have coming into the space elevator. So we need to create this smart plating, versatile frameworks, and automated wiring to unlock tiers 5 and 6. And so hopefully by the end of today's episode, we'll have put the factory components in place to be able to reduce all of these items. You can see I've already created 489 of these smart platings, and that's because every time I run back to the base here, I bring a little bit of components with me and we drop them into this here assembler. And so you can see all I got to do is put a few more reinforced iron plates and rotors in here, and we're going to start creating smart plating again. Since we don't really need that many, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio of making them, just dropping a stack in here is going to create a stack of smart plates. And since we only needed a handful more, this is going to create more than enough smart plates for us. And so we're going to let that just keep going, and we'll have all the smart plates that we need long before we get the automation set up for the other two components. So now that we're all caught up with my off-camera adventures, let's take a quick look here at the active milestones that we have here in the hub. And really what we're going to need to do is get advanced steel production unlocked today to get to our third automatic wiring component. And in order to do that, we're going to need to start creating some of these steel pipes. In fact, we're going to need steel pipes to unlock all of the research in Tier 4. Last episode, we unlocked basic steel production here in Tier 3, which is going to allow us to make those steel pipes. And really, in order to make the steel pipes and the steel beams, we're going to need to make these steel ingots. This also unlocked the project part 2 for our space elevator, which is these versatile frameworks. And so really, we need to focus on building the things that we unlocked here in basic steel production, which all starts with building the foundry and getting our steel ingot production started. So if we come into the build menu here, you can see that foundry is another type of smelter. It's a more advanced type that takes 2 inputs. And so if we place one down here real quick, we'll be able to look at the recipe here for steel ingots, which requires equal parts iron and coal. And so we're going to need to be able to fill this with iron and coal. We've got lots of unused iron here in this base, but we don't have any coal up here. And so we're going to have to figure out a good place where we can get both iron and coal. And luckily, if you remember from the previous episode when we went exploring and we found the cave of horrible spiders, we also found that there was coal and iron down that way. So we're gonna jump in our speedy little truck here, and we're gonna head back out there and check out the quality of those nodes. So if I recall appropriately, we have 2 coal nodes sitting down here in this little basin, which I'm not sure what quality these nodes are. So we'll go ahead and jump out here, always being careful to watch for bad creatures that are going to come and try and eat us. And it looks like this is a normal node. This is also a normal node. And then I think if we pop open our scanner, we've got an iron node somewhere right up on this cliff face. So let's jump back in the truck and head up there and see what kind of iron node that is. If we're lucky, it's going to be a pure iron node, which means we'll get 120 iron from the iron node, and then we're gonna also get 120 coal from the 2 coal nodes combined. I'm just looking over here wondering if we can actually drive the truck all the way up to that iron node. We're gonna give it a shot. Looks like there's a little bit of a cliff face there that we might not be able to get up, but I'm sure if I park my truck right here, we can use it to jump up and over. Like so. There we go. And there are bad guys up here. So let's clear the nest out here. See if we can do so without dying. I should really probably heal myself before we go out on an adventure. We're a little bit low on health points, but we do have a pure iron node. So let's go ahead and knock this piece off real quick. And if I ever so carefully step up to the edge here, both of our coal nodes are right down here. So if I grab a Mark 1 miner, because that's the best miner that we currently have access to, I'm going to have this iron come straight out of this, and we're going to try and take it over the edge here. Now, maybe ideally I could build some platforms to square this all up and make it a little bit easier to manage. I'm just looking at where things are at. If we pop open our foundations here, maybe we'll do that. Something like this. I'm trying to determine my ground height here. So if I put that right there, let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. Let's pick this miner back up and we'll lay the foundations. So you can lay foundations right over a mining spot like this, and the miner will allow you to still connect to it afterwards, which is kind of handy. And so we're gonna do that. We don't actually need these other platforms over here, so we'll clean that up, keep things nice and tidy. And I'm just gonna continue to build platforms here until I can get to the edge and look down and not be over the cliff, because my goal is going to be to use a conveyor to bring our iron down here next to the coal. And so I think if I do something like this, we'll be able to bring it down, maybe even bring it down on that other side over here. And then if I remember correctly, if I put a belt conveyor support one off of the outside like this, I believe I can then hook a conveyor lift up to it. Whoa, splat. And then we can run that said conveyor lift down here. And so we're gonna do that. But before we do that, we're gonna get some foundations set up here so that we can build some things. And I think if I just use the same orientation I already had, in fact, let's actually bring this down and we'll make sure that our foundations line up correctly. Don't worry, we'll get rid of these before we start trying to put our coal mine down on top of this. I am a little bit curious if I use these taller 4-meter setups, if I'll be able to get the miner to come through that. Over here, it's definitely not going to be a problem because this coal comes up pretty tall. And so I'm just going to widen this platform out a bit here and give us an area to work with. And then we'll make sure that our miner is going to go down before we get too far. It will, so let's finish out our foundation. And then similarly, let's go ahead and get rid of this pillar now that we've got a foundation down here that's completely lined up. We don't need all of that in the way. And we'll just widen this area out here to work with as well. We'll sink our foundations into the cliff face a little bit there just to make it look nice and smooth. And unfortunately, this side, we're not finding the resource node. We're a little bit too tall for it. So the easy fix for that is to simply remove the 4 meters and we'll take a step down. And so we'll just grab these 2-meter foundations and stack them like so. And then we can just get rid of the taller one like that. And that will allow us to place these 2-meter foundations down here instead of the giant 4-meter ones, having our coal node poke right up through this still. And then from here, we're gonna be able to drop our miner into place. So that's all looking nice and snazzy. And then actually, it looks like we could run that, we could drop that right off of the end here. We're gonna go all the way back up to the top there, and we're gonna bring our conveyor belt right down from the end. Well, that was certainly a bit of a hike, so hopefully we don't fall down here again. And there's still one of these things alive trying to eat me. My goodness. All right. And we're not completely lined up here with the center of this platform. So I think what I'm going to do is put this down right here, center it up out of the miner, and then we'll run this all the way down here. And I don't think I want to put it right on the edge. I think what I want to do is take it one step back, if I'm not mistaken. And then if we get this conveyor lift Mark II, what we're going to be able to do, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it from up here, or if we have to get down there, but we're going to drop it down, and we're going to put it as close to the floor as we can without going into the floor. I think that's the right spot. We'll see in a moment when we get down there. But we've definitely got this running into here. And then all we need to do is make sure that we also have power for the mine. And so I'm going to actually run the power pole right up to the corner of this as well so that we can get easy access to it. We're going to have to bring some power over from our power factory here at some point, but I think we've got everything we need done up here, so we're gonna grab our truck actually and bring that back down here with us and see how good of a job we did down below. Oh, we're out of fuel, so we brought a whole bunch of this biofuel with us because we got so much of it from cutting down all the trees where we built our base that we might as well use it up. All right, so we're back down here. I think the only thing I want to try and do is going to be to see what this is going to look like if I bring this down to 2-meter foundations instead of the 4. I just want to see if we can get this all on the same height. It's not that big of a deal if we can't. It's just going to bother me a little bit, I think. So if the ground doesn't come up through the 2 meters outside of the coal, which is fine, I think I would prefer if this was all just a little bit lower like this. We're going to get a little bit of grass bleeding through. We can live with that. That's all right. Let's see what this looks like once I put a miner on it. Yeah, it's not bad. Let's get the chainsaw out and clear some of this stuff out. Once we clear all this out, it shouldn't respawn because we have structures within a certain distance of the respawn points, so I believe that's how it works. You don't get creatures or vegetation respawning if you've built a structure of some kind, or at least like I think it's a foundation within a certain distance. Maybe it's any kind of a structure. We've now got 2 of these miners here, and we've brought this down. We didn't quite bring it down far enough though. So let's try that again. Let's see if we can actually do it from down here. It would be epic if we could. It looks like I can grab that. It's not exactly centered though. I thought I'd centered that belt. Either way, we can bring it down just like this, which is awesome. So now we've got our 120 meter, our 120 iron per minute, and we've got 2 of these, which should bring out 60 coal per minute, which means our last remaining step is going to be to put down a foundry. I think we're going to actually make the steel right here on site, since we have the coal and the iron in the right quantity here to produce steel. It makes sense to just do it here and then bring the steel back with us. And at that point, we can do more with the steel back at the factory. But there's no sense hauling all of that raw material all the way back when the combined material will be less volume for us to haul back and forth. So as a first step, I'm going to toss down a foundry here. And I want to see what the recipe needs. So we're going to take 45 iron and coal in to make steel. And we've got 120 available to us. So we're going to be able to run a little bit more than 2 of these foundries. So we'll just put 3 down. It's not 100% efficient, but as we get better miners and stuff here, we'll be able to run more and more foundries out here. So we'll definitely be playing with that a bit. let's see if I can craft up the modular frames that we need here to actually build 2 more of these foundries. And just like that, we've got 2 more foundries here that we've been able to slap down. And so in hindsight, we're gonna actually have to add 1 more row of foundations here, give us a little bit more room to work with. I know a lot of people like to build their factories in the most compact way possible. I prefer to have a little bit of room to move around so that we're not so cramped into places and we can actually do what we need to do. Now, I am going to leave a space off of the left wall there to allow us to enclose this at some point if we want. I do like keeping things looking neat, at least. I don't like when the factories are always exposed to the outside elements. And so at some point here, as we get the rest of our technologies unlocked, it'll be nice to close in some of these factories. And so we're going to take this splitter here, and I'm going to set these right in the middle of these platforms to give me a little bit of room to move my belts around. So after a moment of thought here, I've decided to go with my stacked splitter design here, which means we're going to bring the iron in here on the bottom, and I'm going to have that come over onto this side, and then we'll bring the coal in on the top. And this way our splitters are just kind of centered here to the machines, and that's going to allow me to more easily get everything going to the right spot without having to have belts that overlap each other and look kind of goofy. And we're going to make sure that our supply belts in the splitters are all upgraded to Mark II belts, just because we know at some point we may come in here and expand this setup. So let's make sure we have steel selected on each of these. And then we need to just grab a merger here that we can run into our top supply splitter. I think that arrow indicates we're far enough away to get a belt up there. So let's try that theory. Like so. And then this one can come into here. And this one can come into here. We'll use a nice angled belt here. It doesn't look too bad. A lot of times I'll try and square and 90 off some of my belts, but we've gone a bit curvy here everywhere anyhow. Lastly, we're going to need to get power set up. Unfortunately, I've run out of wire, so we're going to run all the way back here to the base, and we'll bring the power back across the water here with us. All right, so we've acquired the copper wire we need, and we've got plenty of cable as well. And so we're taking a look at this. We've got not enough spots here, which is a bit of a surprise. I'm trying to think about where the best place is going to be to bring power over to this area. The daylight at present is really annoying. We can't hardly see anything with this fog at the moment. But we're going to go ahead, I think, and grab power from this pole here. And what I'd like to do is get it brought down kind of over there. I think our base is over there. It'd be really nice if we could see it. And so I think what I want to do is just bring the power up here. Having it in kind of a high location that I'm going to be able to see it and interact with it is going to be useful. And then we can put the other one down here, and that's going to give me a spot to ride the line on down here. And this is perfect, actually, now that the sun has worked its way out here and we can see our base. This is a perfect spot to bring this down for us. And so I want to make sure we can get as far as we can. Invalid load aim location means we're probably a little far away. We can't go any farther, so I'm going to just put it down right in this area. I think that's going to look good. And then let's ride on down here, and we'll get it brought right on into the base here. So we're coming in just short. Oh my goodness. So we'll put it right back here, and then we're going to bring one up to the top to power the iron. And then we'll bring one right in back here, I think. And use this to power our other devices. So we're not going to be stingy with our power poles. We'll put one down for the miners, and we'll put one down here for all of the foundries. And since there's 3 of those, we'll get those run and put them onto the line. And then we'll hook this line up to our 2 miners. So at this point, this whole factory should be coming online now. And if we look at our power grid here, our maximum possible consumption is now over what our capacity for power production is. So we produce at max 400 megawatts of power. We're currently producing 300 because we have 2 bioreactors that only come on if they're needed. So if all of the things in our factory were to come online right now, we would actually blow a circuit breaker. So that's a concern. We are going to have to look at expanding our power grid here soon. However, in the short term, we should be in a pretty good spot. And you can see we're now successfully creating steel in all 3 of these foundries. And much like we've started to set up at our other base here, I'm going to put down some foundations, and we're going to lay the framework for a truck stop. And at some point here, we'll get trucks set up to bring this steel back and forth from this outpost to our base. So let's see how big of an area a truck station needs. It looks like I need 3 platforms out. So let's grab the foundations and we'll put a few more out here. Oh, looks like our truck is actually in the way. We'll move this guy back up out of the way a little bit here. So we're able to now place down this truck station thanks to having all of the materials necessary in our truck, which is the other reason I like doing my exploration with the truck. So I'm going to slap this down right here, giving me enough room to have the truck get loaded here. And then we're also going to be able to set things up to import our materials into the truck station here. To start us off, I am going to drop a stack of fuel in here. At some point, we will hopefully have enough extra coal to be able to fuel our trucks directly with that. And then all we need to do now is load all of these materials into the truck station here. So I'm going to use a merger, and I'm going to get it lined up right here with the back of our truck station. And then I'm just going to pipe all of these foundries right into this merger. It's not going to be pretty, but it is going to be functional. And we should see all of the steel ingots here going into our truck station. And with the power hooked up to the truck station, you can see now that we've got our steel ingots filling into this space, which should allow us to fill our truck up when we pull into it. I believe that's going to work both manually and automatically. So let's go ahead and see if we can set things up here in such a way that we can test this theory out on our drive back up to the base. All right, so we've got this ramp here, and the thought process behind it is if we take a look at my cargo space, we do have some cargo space available in this truck. And so if we pull in here with our truck and come to a complete stop, it should load our cargo up here for us. Looks like we only had enough for 1 drop. Depending on how much cargo there is, you may get a couple of drops into your truck, I think. And then if we just stop here and look, we've already got 3.5 stacks of steel ingots available for us to bring back to our base. And so this was a super quick and easy way for us to get steel up and running. This is a self-contained spot in that the steel and iron nodes match up perfectly. As we get into higher tech levels, we'll be able to scale the miners up and get even more steel production out of this one facility. With this steel facility done, we should have enough steel to get started on unlocking the next things in our tech tree. And we're gonna take a quick look at the hub here. I think the first thing that I really would like to unlock is advanced steel production, because that's gonna give us access to both the Miner Mark II as well as our third component that we want. So let's go ahead and select this milestone, and we'll load up the materials we have. We'll need to go pick up some rotors, and we need about 200 of these steel pipes. Just looking at the craft bench, you can see we've got plenty of steel ingots to make those 200 pipes. And so setting up some steel automation over at the factory is going to be one of our next projects. However, just to get the research going, we might as well just crank these out real quick. It'll take just a moment. And we're back with rotors in hand. Boom. Just like that, we have advanced steel production. So with that out of the way, our next milestone is going to be Logistics Mark III, giving us access to better belts and these big industrial storage containers, which will just simplify some of our storage of our bulkier items. But we've got a ways to wait while the drop pod returns. And so let's head on up here and get our third project assembler part set up here, just so that we can take stock of all of the components we're going to need to keep our space elevator moving forward, which would be the automated wiring here. We're going to need 50 cable per minute and some of these stators. Here we're going to need to ramp up our steel production with steel beams and modular frames, so we'll need to set up those production lines back at the main factory. And here our smart plating looks like it's done. Let's go ahead and take a look here. I'm seeing on the conveyor belt up here we've got a few stacked up, so we've actually completed that particular part of the assembly process. Now, we won't need those plates anymore. We're done with that particular part of the production line, but we're going to leave this set up here for the time being because we will eventually need to make more of those plates and feed them into a more advanced component for the space elevator. So for the time being, we'll just leave this all set up and worry about that when we get to more of the end game research upgrades. We're going to have a long way to go here, finishing out tier 4 and getting into tiers 5 and 6, which we'll unlock with the space elevator. However, I think that's going to be all for today. We didn't get quite as far as I hoped today. However, we do have all of the technologies unlocked to get to the next space elevator tier, and we did get our steel production up and running. Stay tuned to next episode as we get our truck network up and running and finish automating all of the components necessary to start building parts 2 and 3 here to upgrade our space elevator. If you enjoyed today's episode, drop a like. It helps the channel out immensely. That's all for today. Keterk